Oh, great. So, what does anyone want to share or do today?
Well, this isn't something I wanted to share, but we were just getting nervous. We thought maybe the Lord had come and we had missed it, you know. You were gone.
I definitely wouldn't have gone because I don't believe in going, so...
Yeah, that's right. We believe in conquering and dominating, ruling.
Yeah, bringing dominion and rule. Yeah, not running away and getting rescued.
That's right.
Excellent. Okay. Right. Oh, Henry's disappeared. Anyway.
You sure wouldn't have any doubt on who to share the gospel with in that situation. I do have some fun testimonies to share if we're ready there. So yesterday we had some missionaries from Slovakia that were here visiting us. We've been partnering with them for 6 years or so. And what was unique, and I just felt it was kind of a timing, but you know, they hadn't been for a visit for about 1.5 years. I mean, I connect with them online and stuff, but and I told them that we, you know, over the past 2-3 years, we've been kind of transitioning and so I sensed, you know, we met as a bench, and I brought up the situation. I said, well, I think it's time to share with them the depth and the difference of our transition. And we all agreed, and so Don and I had them over for dinner on Friday night, and I shared with them, and they listened. They asked a lot of questions, and they were several months ago when there was that situation with the one young man. She quickly emailed me to make sure that I wasn't involved with that one young man, so they kind of got frightened from that. And so anyhow, we shared at the table, and it's, you know, they seemed to ask good questions and everything, but it wasn't, you know, it was just a good question, informational. And so I'd asked Mark, I go, well, what were you going to be, you know, sharing tomorrow? And he goes, oh, transformation. And I went, oh, great, that's awesome, because, you know, John Buni here, he's walking everybody through the transformation series. And he goes, you mean you guys are already into that? I go, oh, yeah. Isn't that awesome? Well, they came, and they sat through, they're on session 12, and they came, and they sat through that, and they were just kind of like, oh, and I walked in, and I went, oh, my goodness, they're sitting through one of my sessions. And they came, and then, you know, everyone was kind of going, oh, you know, and so we were downstairs and getting ready to queue up for our gathering, and he got up, and he, worship was awesome, and he got up and he shared, he goes, you know, I had a vision, and I had a vision about this golden river and these rocks with gemstones in the river, and there was a rainbow, and the rainbow was going to the river, and we're all going tee tee, you know, because we're kind of understanding it. And he shares that, and he shares a couple of scripture passages, and then he looks at us with these kind of big eyes, and he goes, I think we need to have a workshop. And he sat down, and he looked at me, he goes, get up, and I went, okay, I know what to do. And what was interesting is, this is an interesting piece of history, is that 6 years ago, before I met them, I had an encounter with 5 angels, and one of them, it took me a very long time to figure out you know, because they're dressed sometimes in different clothing and stuff for purposeful reasons. and there was a Moravian angel, and I couldn't figure it out. Where were you from? And then I finally figured it out. Well, when I very first time met them, you know, I was sitting at the table with them at our other house. I went, okay, these are missionaries. They're going to another country. And then all of a sudden, real random, I go, you guys wouldn't, the people that, because they're from Slovakia, you guys wouldn't happen to be related at all with, like, Moravian or anything? They go, oh, this is where they started. And I went, aha. So anyhow, I had the 5 angels that came yesterday with the same 5 angels that visited me 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I sure knew what to do with them this time. But it was amazing. It was amazing. And so what we did is we did a mandate. It was so cool. And because we figured those were boundary stones.
Yeah.
And so we employed the angels to go set the boundary stones. And I mean, everybody was participating. And they're just going, oh my gosh, it was awesome. It was awesome, awesome, awesome.
Excellent. Very good. Yeah. Because, the Moravian thing was it Count von Zindendorf or something? It went on for 100 years, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, and they migrated a few times, but their original migration before they started, they were from the Slovakia, that particular area, before they started getting removed from the territory. But my friends minister in Slovakia to what are called the Romas, and they're the Gypsies, and they don't want them there. They haven't for quite a long time.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, but it's great, to see, in a sense, your testimony of growth and maturity in it, and engaging, and people engaging, and which is really, really good, because it gives you, in a sense, encouragement, doesn't it? When you an affirmation that you can see, how you've matured into things, and people have picked it up, and people are actually, participating in it, which is great. That's really, really good. I like that.
And it was really amazing and very touching that so easily. I mean, they all of a sudden it just, God had prepared their hearts, and they knew that they could receive something that was so valuable and could help position them. I mean, that part was just awesome.
Yeah. Great. Okay.
And I have connected with Lure. Is it Lure from England? So thank you very much. We're Johnny on the spot. Look out, France.
Good. Excellent. Yeah.
I've got a short testimony.
Yeah.
I been out foraging around in other places, and was down south of us. It's in Oregon. Last 2 weeks ago, I've been got a couple of fellows down there, pastors and minister types that I've been speaking into. So we were at breakfast, and I told one of them last week. I said, he said, yeah. He said, I had that happen to me. Angel came to him. I said, did you say anything to him? No. I said, well, try speaking to him next time. Ask him his name. So about an hour later, he had to go to work. About an hour later, he texted me, and this other guy says, wow. He said, how's that work? And I also told him, I said, when an angel comes in, acknowledge it and turn to it, because you'll usually see something, or you'll notice something, there'll be some kind of. And so he said, I turned, and I finally saw it. It was a pillar of multicolors, and I asked its name, and he said, my name is Pillar. He was pretty excited. He said, they've called me a pillar in the church for years. So I thought
Awesome.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
I was in a church. I was in a church and planting seed. A lot of groundbreaking. But one of the things I'm doing is making the statement. You talk to devils all the time. Start talking to angels, and it's quite a shocker for the average person to hear that, because they do. I rebuke the devil. Devil, I bind you.
Mm.
And we learned all the names of the devils in the 70s and 80s through the deliverance ministry, but we never learned one name from the angelic.
No, as if they wouldn't have them. That's the thing. And it's like because it wasn't on the radar at all, was it? The whole angelic thing just wasn't on the radar at all. Now, God has interjected, and in a sense, he's having some fun, isn't he, with challenging people's preconceived ideas about this stuff, because it's very difficult when an angel appears or engages with you and it's just, oh, sorry, I can't talk to you because my theology doesn't allow me to talk to you, but I can talk to the demons because I'm supposed to talk to them. It's just, it sort of, in a sense, shows the ludicrousness of it all, doesn't it, really? But religion so binds people up with these type of things because it puts God in a nice convenient box which makes everything safe and secure, and nothing's ever going to change because we know everything that we need to know, and we're just waiting, Whereas, as soon as God starts to break in, we realize we don't know anything really, and what we do know is about to change, most of it. So it is challenging for those, I guess, who are who've used all that security to give themselves the positions that they have, and as soon as God starts to shake some of that, their insecurities come out. Because a lot of leaders want everybody to know that they know everything and they're the fount of knowledge, and therefore it's okay. And as soon as you have to realize, look, I don't know hardly anything, but we're all in the same boat and we're all engaging together, then really that does challenge those old mindsets and our old conceptions, because leadership was based on the ability to give all the answers. Now it's based on the ability to point people to God, who's going to give them answers, which is why the testimony of doing a workshop and things like that is great, because it's all about, hey, I'm not going to sit here telling you everything. Let's go and find out what God is actually wanting to show everybody, which is great. So yeah, good. And we need to sow those seeds, because those seeds are the things that can then produce fruit and roots and shoots in people. When God starts to water that seed, and they have an encounter of something that they can't explain, then it will come back to them, because people are going to need some guidance when they're coming out of old systems into new, because all their old frames of reference will no longer apply. So all the things that they would have been able to sort of go to give them an understanding of something no longer apply. So they're going to need people like you and others who will be able to connect with them and help them through their journey. It's like Kristen with these missionaries. They're now on the journey. And then they'll know that there's always someone that they can engage with and support, or get support from, who's on that journey in the same way, which will bring a degree of, hey, it's okay to pursue and to explore some of these things, because someone's gone before, and I can always bounce this off them. Whereas when people are on their own, it's harder for them to do that. And I think a lot of what we're looking to do in terms of providing a resource is at least people know that there's somewhere they can ask. There's a forum they can go and talk, or they can at least share some of these things. Whereas on their own, it's hard. And the enemy will always put that thing is, oh well, don't you'll get deceived. So when there's sort of people can go to, then that fear of deception can be removed. Because the enemy uses that one a lot to hinder people to go outside of their boxes and stuff. So,
I've been invited tomorrow night to speak to a pastors' conference, small one, about maybe 100 there, and it's a mixed past Pentecostal, charismatic / seeker friendly. And what the Spirit spoke to me last night was just step out of the way and open the door in the Spirit, and they won't know what hit them in the sense of in the intellect, but there's going to be some visitations. There'll be what I'm doing is just opening the door for the Spirit to invade this thing and start working. And what I say, I'm not going to, like you say, I'm just dropping seed, but I'm looking forward to it.
It's great, and I think we need to take those sort of opportunities. I've been invited to speak to a ladies' conference in North Carolina, which I'm not going to North Carolina. I'm doing it online. I'm doing it from the UK in May, but they've asked me to speak on walking in the Spirit. Which is a complete open door to sort of identifying what I used to think of walking in the Spirit was from what I'm now experiencing in walking in the Spirit, which will be a great opportunity. It'll be a great opportunity just to, again, open those doors, share and sow the seeds, and then those that are hearing the sound and those who are being drawn to that sound, they'll know where to go if they want to follow and find others who've gone before who can help them find their own path in it, which is the great thing in these things. And God is opening those doors of opportunity a lot for people today, because he wants people to come into their inheritance. He wants people to come out of the wilderness experience and come into the fullness of the promised land of God's blessing. We just have to keep giving a good report. And that's our responsibility. Keep giving a good report, and some people will respond to that good report, and they will look to find the good in where this is going, which is what we want. The hunger and the passion and the desire that will open up that way for them to cross and begin to experience these things for themselves. So it's awesome. Yeah, great. Okay. All right. Okay. So, anyone else got anything they want to share or testify to or ask? Someone's got to want something, otherwise might as well finish.
Don't do that. There's every one of us has something to ask. We're just waiting. I'll jump in again.
Go on then.
It seems like we're on a vein here, perhaps, that you can just give us some more, maybe some more addition to. I meet someone, they say, what are you doing now? Or what's God saying to you? Just play that out briefly for us. I'm hearing you say it all the time along the way, but if I was if I was in another move like the charismatic or the faith movement or any of those, I would say, well, this is what God is saying, or this is what I'm doing now. how did you and how do you transition and give that simple open door for a brand new one?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I tend to try and get on common ground. So I tend to use my testimony in certain scriptures that go beyond the old way of thinking about that scripture into sharing that I've experienced that in a new way. So I would sort of, if I'm talking to people who come from a sort of more evangelical background and not so much of a charismatic background, I would really be talking about the Word of God and how the Word of God has been unveiled, and I'm experiencing it and encountering it in a new and living way, that it's become living and active in me, and begin to unveil it from the common ground of the Word, because that's where they're familiar, and then look to use certain scriptures which they probably have an interpretation which is non-experiential, and begin to share that with them, like, you know, come boldly to the throne of grace, something like that, which is or you know, I often use Revelation 3:20, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And I would then say, actually, I've had an amazing, you know, revelation of this, where actually I began to see, well, that door was in my own spirit, and that means God is wanting to come into my spirit, and I just have to open the door. And then I had this encounter where the river of life started to flow, and you know, depending on, you know, how interested they seemed to be at that point would be how far I went. But then I would sort of look at it at, well, you know, then I would use like John 14 and say, you know, we are that God is dwelling in us, but do we engage? And I said, well, I've actually met God in me, in a sense, and encountered him and had an experience of talking to him in that way, and just use that type of thing. If it was more, if I was talking to someone who's more used to the charismatic type things, and they may have had sort of visions or prophetic type experiences, then again I would then begin to use scriptures which, you know, I would use Revelation 4:1. It's like, oh, there's a door standing open in heaven. Or I would sort of share, I had an encounter with Jacob, you know, and I was reading Genesis 28, and, you know, Bethel and the experience with the open heaven, the ladder going up into heaven, and I had an experience like that. I had this vision where I went up that ladder, you know. So I would, depending on who I was talking to, I would use particular, you know, whether it be more an experience in the Word that became something which was more than just the Word, or an experience like, you know, an encounter with the Holy Spirit. Well, I would just going to sort of take that to another level, and ultimately what I'm looking to do is to help them see that we have access through the veil. And I might use the children of Israel analogy, and talk about, you know, my experiences of, well, you know, being in the wilderness, and, you know, people having crossed over into another land, and they brought back a good report, and I was interested in that good report enough to go and encounter that land for myself. So you know, and again, what is the promised land? Well, obviously years ago when I was growing up, that would have been heaven after you die. So we wander around the wilderness for all our life, and then we cross over the Jordan and go into heaven when we die. You know, but actually that's not the illustration of Scripture, is it? The illustration of Scripture is they crossed over, and then they inherited the land, and they then took possession of it, and they established a nation. So even in that, you would just use the, you know, analogy of the children of Israel, and actually say, look, share the testimony that, you know, I felt like I've been wandering around the wilderness for the last, I don't know how many years, and I just felt there had to be more than this, and then God opened up this opportunity that I seemed to cross over into a heavenly experience of going into that realm. And I think there's just so many different ways that we can help people to, you know, hear that sound that God is the deep calling to deep type experience, that God is just looking to take us into something new, engage beyond. You know, if it was someone who was quite wildly charismatic, I might engage the angelic type experiences of, you know, I met this angel, you know, because they would probably be familiar with sort of some of those type of things. The key is really to try and find common ground and to encourage through testimony rather than arguing through the word. You know, I always go back to my testimony of this word or this experience is this. I'm not going to argue theology over it, you know, because my experience will beat anyone's theology any time because it's my testimony. And someone else might not have experienced that yet, but they can't deny that I've experienced it. If I try and argue theology with them, then they can come up with another theology, and we're just batting theology back and forward. But as soon as it's like, actually, no, this is my testimony, this is the fruit of my testimony, this is how it changed my life, this is how the difference it's made to me, being able to operate in this, and, you know, and sometimes, you know, I will use, like, Jesus's life as a sort of way of entrance into that, and sort of use some of Jesus's supernatural experiences that people don't really think about, you know. So, you know, I don't know, disappearing in the temple, or moving through people when they tried to throw him off the rocks, and it's almost sort of like, actually, there seems to be way more to some of these things than we first thought, type of thing. That then you can go into, and it seems that Jesus actually said that he lived in the realm of heaven while he was on the earth, like John 3:13, you know, and that type of, you know, depending on who I was talking to, I'd just be led by the Spirit to what I would share, you know. But usually what I do is leave them wanting more, rather than give them so much stuff that they feel that they're going to be sick. And, you know, when I first came out of heaven and first had engagement with heaven, the poor people who happened to engage me for the first few times, that they just got a dump of stuff because I was so excited, and they were just like, oh, overwhelmed, can't cope, you know. So I learned to meter it out in a more sensible way, and rather leave someone hungry for something more than feeling that I've told them everything that I needed to tell them in this encounter, because I might not get another one, so I've just dumped everything on them, you know, because it may not be me who encounters them the next time. It may be someone else who can take them a bit further in their journey, and I don't want them to be so put off that next time they don't ask me questions of anyone else because, you know, they've just been overwhelmed, you know, overload, you know. And I've been there. I've sort of own that accusation. I've been there in the past, you know, just give people too much too soon because I was just excited and enthusiastic. So I sort of, I'm a bit more mature in how I share things now. But we want to inspire that it's possible, and our testimony is really the best way of doing that, particularly if it has fruit of how it's made a difference in our lives. You know, that in itself hopefully will encourage people to be open to ask God for themselves. And you know, if it's someone that, you know, is quite comfortable and really starts to, hey, I'm really interested in this, I might even then do an encounter. And usually I would, you know, either do a, hey, Jesus wants to come and talk to you right now, so, or the Revelation 3:20 or Revelation 4:1 type thing, and just do a very simple, hey, Kate, just, you know, close your eyes and begin to think about Jesus, and then, you know, he'll picture him in front of you, and then just talk to him. You know, something simple. It might be like engaging rivers of living water. So it's like, you know, in us, John 4, there's a fountain. Where is that in my spirit? Can I engage that? What does it feel like? Some things which just will be, you know, even could be the throne of grace. Is there a need you've got right now that you would really want God to be able to help you with? Okay, let's go and engage him at the throne of grace, and you hand all those things over and just let him bring you into a place of peace and rest. You know, because people are used to going to the throne of grace by praying. We just open it up a little bit further into actually helping them to begin to use their imagination to picture it and then go through it, and then you'll find that they're in it. And once someone's had a taste of that, you know, they're ruined for anything else, really. So, you know. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I had an encounter about 2 weeks ago of a fellow that I'm walking with. He's really a spiritual guy, but hasn't got into this yet. And you know, prophetic type, called me about a situation. I said, here's what you do. I took him to Zechariah 3. I said, go into the throne. I just walked him into it, told him what to do, just briefly. And you know, wasn't too long later, maybe the next day, he was so amazed what happened. He said, oh, you won't believe, you know, what happened. I went in there, and so
Bye, dear.
It was a good word. Thank you. Good word.
I will.
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of these things, it really is just being led by the Spirit. I think, you know, it's not having I do it this way, but just being sensitive to where the person is, who the person is, what common ground there is, and the right amount to, you know, open up their, you know, inquisitiveness to think there may be more, you know. And, you know, if we can get people to the point where they're thinking, yeah, there's got to be more than this, and I'm looking for what that might be, then that hunger will lead them to what God is unveiling, without a doubt. So, you know, because God wants people to experience. I mean, and I think there are things that are happening right now that probably are happening from an old sort of perspective, but they're great opportunities. When I'm in the States in April, I'm in LA when the call is going on with Lou Engle. And so, you know, I was asked, do you want to go to the thing? You know, it was, you know, 100,000 odd people or whatever. And I said, asked God, and I said, no, but legislate while they're there and begin to call for, this is going to be not a heaven come down, this is going to be a heaven open and a you come up for people. A great opportunity for hungry people who are looking for the usual heavens open and revivals coming into the earth, to, hey, they may get more than they bargained for, in that they may get an invitation to come up the other way. So I'm going to be, while they're engaging in that call, I'm going to be doing some stuff to open those doors for them, so that they're a two-way street, and look really for people to have heavenly encounters and engaging the angelic and engaging heaven, even though they may be going thinking that this is what they're looking to do. The call is the other way. We're not calling God to come down, he's calling us to come up. And so, you know, for me, that's a great opportunity. They may be thinking that it's going to be one thing, but God's got a bigger agenda. And the call is definitely God calling. Come up here, come deeper, come and experience more, come cross over. Whatever terminology we like to use, that for me is what the call is. So do I want to engage in calling God to come down here? No, but I really want to help facilitate God calling people to come up there, so that we can bring everything down here and become a gateway for that to flow here. You know, I think it's us that should be the gateway for the kingdom to flow into the earth, not just supernatural things where God just does it sovereignly because people have prayed and everything else. That's great for when we were not able to take those positions of responsibility ourselves, but now we are. We're then responsible for administrating that flow of heaven into the earth through our lives as gateways, which, you know, becomes much more interactive, and less, okay, we're just got to wait here, or we'll just pray and hope God does something. and there are obviously 100,000 people coming, plus all those who are probably going to engage because they can't get there physically. There's an amazing opportunity to really begin to legislate into that environment and see it open up in a completely different way, that the sound of God's call from heaven will go forth and be heard and be heralded, that people can really come into a different dimension of that. Because all those guys are hungry, they wouldn't be going for this. It's obviously the 110th anniversary of Azusa Street, and the amazing things that went on there, and all that went on. But we don't want more Azusa Streets. We want a totally different dimension of what God wants to do, and they has to be administrated in a different way from a heavenly perspective. So it'll be interesting, but I believe these are opportune moments that we need to look out for, and then be willing, if we're mandated to do so, to engage and look to see things change in those environments, which is excellent. Yeah. Okay. Fine. And we're warming up a bit now. So has anyone else got a question or something they want to share?
You're not going to be in the Northwest, are you?
No, not this time. There is some. I was talking to a few people who are potentially maybe talking about coming back there at some stage, possibly in the autumn or something, but I haven't heard any more about that. But I'm sort of open to do so. This is just mostly it's in San Diego, in LA, and in Phoenix. So really looking to see something in the Southwest get established governmentally, as things happened in the Northwest last time. And it's great to to still hear the testimonies of things that are going on and the encouragement that's happening, and people taking their mantles and beginning to engage in different ways. And I'm sort of looking for, I think, is more of a some of the people I've got connected with down there are in that place where I think they can begin to engage, and some is opening the door for others. So in LA, I think I'm doing a 3-day sort of more of an open conference type thing, and then I've got a 3-day private thing where it's just sort of invited people, which is more sort of personal and intimate, which would be great, but yeah, I'm sort of open, to. I mean, some of the thing with the Northwest was, do you really need me to come back there when you got all this stuff going on anyway? It's almost like I'd just be coming to cheer you on, but something that I can help or facilitate or encourage, then I'm certainly willing. But really, it's up to people really if they feel that that's something that they would like to do. Anyway. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't able to hear the first part of the hangout, so I'm not sure what you're discussing really.
Well, it was just testimonies earlier on of different things that have been going on, which is great. So. So, anything you want to share or ask?
Well, I don't know. I'm still trying to kind of process some things. I had done a series of court cases last week, and it ended up kind of coming together with a dark cloud type of encounter where the Lord began. I was kind of watching the outworkings of the proceedings, and the Lord through him in the dark cloud. It brought up some stuff for me from the past, and the way that I was experiencing this was the same way that we used to outwork things, and I don't know whether it was the same because I was kind of addressing some matters involving the same people group, or so I mean, my mind's just sort of blown a couple different ways. One is engaging the Lord, and then seeing the outworkings of that and going, this is the way we used to encounter this here. So, are you? I don't even know how to talk. I don't even know how to talk about this yet.
Yeah. Okay.
I better not.
Well, in reality, anything that's counterfeit has its basis in the real. So there are similarities in some of the counterfeit things in the truth and reality of things. We just have to make sure that the fruit is and the flow is coming from the right place. Even if something, just because something looks alike on the surface doesn't mean it's alike on the inside. And I think we have to be willing to look at, are there still areas in our lives which are connected to old things which we still need to deal with, or actually no, now I'm getting the truth and the reality of the things I've experienced before in another system, if you like, but this is producing the fruit of the Spirit and love and joy and peace and everything else, where those things were definitely not. And I think, we don't need to be fearful of counterfeits and everything, just be aware. And I think if we're in a relationship with God where we're personally checking things out, and we're flowing with Him in it, then we just have to keep that closeness, and our spirit will begin to ring any alarm bells that need ringing. And if there are things there which we need to deal with, then we can deal with them. I wouldn't be concerned too much about that sort of thing. I personally have not had I never came from that sort of background. So, I came from a very logical left brain scientific background. So I had no real spiritual experiences from any of those things. So I've never really had an issue with, this looks similar to something I did from a wrong perspective before, because I just never did any of those things. So I've never really had to face that. So everything that I've encountered has just been just new. But I know that the fruit of when you encounter the reality and the real operates in love. Everything operates in love, and that's really the plumb line in which we use to evaluate, is this actually a demonstration of love, and outworking with the motivation of love. And that's usually a good indicator of where something is coming from and the motive of that. And that's
that's kind of what I'm getting at here, because the outworking in the past was in love, but it was a very specific kind of an operation that was, I know this was Him, so I'm kind of going, okay, well, if you make yourself available out of that place in this way, and you're, this, did you make yourself available? I mean, that was kind of my question. It's like, if what I was told was that he had made himself available because people needed a way to be able to outwork their stuff, and if the last thing that I ever thought was going to happen was that I was going to enter that kind of a space again, and I used to like that space, and it was a good place.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I ended up with a whole bunch of questions.
sure.
Um,
I mean, I think the good place, maybe from the perspective of how it engaged our soul, but it wasn't engaging our spirit. And I think that's the difference between those that are of a particular spirituality. It isn't actually their spirit that's actually engaging, it's their soul. So a lot of things feel good to the soul, but because the spirit was separated from the soul, then when we then get reintegrated and we get born again and our spirit becomes alive, now we have a way that our spirit can direct and lead and bring an unveiling that to our soul those things may have been good, but actually they weren't producing eternal fruit. They were actually producing treasure which was earthly. Even though the experiences may have seemed spiritual experiences, they were experienced by the soul. I mean, everything in terms of astral projection and all those types, they're soul power. It's not the spirit that was doing it, because the spirit was separated. So people were doing it through the power of the soul. And then when you begin to engage these things in the spirit, it takes on a different dimension, because the motivation isn't coming from the soul. It's actually flowing out of the desire that's in us, in our spirit. And I think
well,
we just have to...
that's what I'm talking about, is the outworking of a really broad spectrum thing that only he could do to begin with. And it was, and that's why the whole thing was kind of so mind-blowing, because it was doing some court cases regarding some real specific historical occasions, and I sat there in one night and watched him like deal with this whole thing. But the way that he showed me is really, it's, I agree with you. I think that there can be some mixture and some soulish stuff and everything, but it was the same. It was like the way that I had seen these things outworked before. But to watch him like be able to address this, across time, all of the generations, the people's lives, all the issues, all the stuff. I don't even, I just don't know how to think about it. It's just, I mean, of course he can do it, but kind of sharing that with, too, it's just.
Yeah, but just because something was similar to what you've experienced before doesn't mean it's the same as what was before.
I'm not saying I'm.
And I think that's the key in this. When the enemy was able to see the firestones of all the potential of what we were called to do, and had accessed the courts of heaven and had been involved in the covering cherubim, so the enemy has enormous revelation and knows the functions of God, has been in the assemblies of God, has been in the courts of God, were there before the fall and everything else, so has immense capacity to be able to counterfeit things. And he could easily run things in the same way that God runs things from a heavenly perspective, because that's what he wants to do. He wants to be like God. But it's the enemy who's doing it in masquerading as God. And a lot of people into spiritualism and different things, think they're connecting with God, and they're not. They're actually connecting with the enemy masquerading as God, doing the same things and using the same methodologies as God would do. So we have to be in that place where our spirit is able to distinguish between the counterfeit and the real, because in essence they are so similar in some of the outworkings, because the enemy knows how to counterfeit. You know, you don't counterfeit something which is valueless and worthless. You counterfeit something which is real and valuable. And if you can get people hooked into a counterfeit thinking it's real, then their experiences aren't actually true experiences, but they're not going to produce eternal fruit. And it's the eternal fruit that only comes through the Spirit, not comes through the flesh. And so I think God can do something which you may have seen the enemy do before, but it was the enemy doing it before, and it's God doing it now. And I think that's where we have to come to in these things. It wasn't God doing it in that other system. It may have looked like him, but it wasn't. Because God doesn't operate through the enemy's systems. The enemy does. But I'm not saying it isn't real. It is real. But it's just a counterfeit reality. You know.
Well, I agree with that. You know, I'm not sure if it wasn't, the real, that, that there was compromise or what. It's kind of, I know the way that I encounter him today, is, becoming at deeper and deeper levels, and I do believe that, this is the real thing.
Yeah. Which is the main thing.
And I'm okay with that. I was having a great time, but it was like, extended encounters, 12, 14-day encounters over a period of a couple of days at a time each day, just extended times, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is really, it was really a sweet time. This conversationally, this doesn't seem to be coming out, really good. To be quite honest, I don't really like these live forums. I'd rather have a closed forum. I don't make nice videos for you. I'm sorry. Sometimes I got stuff going on that I need to talk about and I need to process, and it just doesn't make for always make for a great video. The encounter was just over the top, just maybe some of the best that I've ever, beyond anything, and really great, really good stuff. And I don't even. But I'm still trying to understand, and I just...
Sure. I mean, to me, I've had loads and loads of experiences which I would describe that way, because I don't understand them. They were just amazing experiences that eventually I will. So I've my spirit engages in things that my soul can't contain or understand. And in those experiences, I just allow my spirit to have the experience, and it releases the revelation whenever it needs to. So, I never try and understand or explain them from a cognitive thing. I allow my spirit to outwork them. See, I used to have to try and work things out and understand them. Now I just outwork them. So my spirit receives. I don't try and understand it. I allow my spirit to outwork it. Whereas I had to work things out before, which I don't need to work out now. So I've removed that need to understand and work things out so that I got a handle on it so I can do it. Because if I don't have a spiritual or a cognitive understanding, then I can't teach it, and I won't teach it, and therefore the time isn't to teach it. So I don't share anything of those type of experiences I have, because I'm not in a place where I could explain or help someone in that thing. So I hold those things until my spirit releases the revelation, and I then have a way that I can encounter it. So, you know, things like the firestones and things, I didn't share my experiences of that for a long time because I couldn't help people with it. It was too much of an overwhelming thing until the revelation of what it was became. The same thing with, you know, having experiences with the chancellor's houses and all those things. You know, it was several years before I shared those experiences because I had the experience, and even now I've not shared everything of those experiences because I've not yet have the revelation cognitively to be able to help people with it. So I hold a lot in my spirit. Every day I engage spiritually, and I'm not really looking to cognitively understand it. I'm just looking to spiritually be led. And when I need to understand something, then God releases that. But I can still benefit and flow spiritually even if I don't understand. That's changed from when I used to have to understand. So I was always operating soul and spirit in the realm of heaven. Now I can operate spirit in the realm of heaven and soul in this realm, and they're flowing and connected, whereas I was limited to stepping in and stepping out all the time when my soul needed to have that cognitive connection. But now I'm free. You know, I'm free to have spiritual experiences that I don't cognitively understand yet, and it be okay. I don't have to fret or try and understand them, and I've stopped trying to understand. I've stopped trying to work it out. I enjoy my encounters with God, even though I can't describe them to people, because when I need to be able to describe them, or if I need to, then I will. You know, and that may be sometimes years down the line. You know, so, you know, sometimes it's a matter of, I think, just in having the experience. You know, for me, I journal the experiences, then I allow those testimonies of those experiences to produce fruit, and if I need to share that with someone else, then God gives me the revelation of how I can share it. You know, it took 2 years to share the whole thing of aligning the chancellor's houses and all those things, simply because I was going into them, having encounters in there, but really had no idea of how they worked. You know, but then when God sort of gave me permission to begin to help others with it, because people started sharing that they'd been in this place or been in that place, and, you know, I recognized the places they were in, then God showed me a way of communicating what it meant to bring them into alignment, and how that meant things opened up, and how, you know, government and doors open as a result of it. But, you know, I just continued to encounter as a way of preparing for what was coming in the future, and that's okay. You know, I'm so much freer to be able to do that. You know, because it takes so much time to try and work things out. You know, and I was spending a lot of time meditating to work things out, rather than time to experience more and to outwork things. You know, and I think that's the key. You know, working things out and outworking things, they're the same words, same letters, but they have a totally reversed meaning. And letting things outwork as a flow of the Spirit through my soul and body is very different from trying to work things out through my soul. Even though they were spiritual experiences, I had to try and work them out in my soul, which was a huge restriction in what was possible for me. Now that restriction is removed, you know, I have some experiences which are, you know, undescribable, you know, yet. But hey, they're all part of my journey, and my spirit knows, you know, because my spirit has an eternal perspective on things that my soul doesn't yet have, but is more and more coming into alignment with as my soul and spirit flow together. Yeah, but that's something which I've had to learn, you know, and, you know, have God encounter me and set me free from some of the things which were limitations of the soul. you know. But anyway, that's that. All right. Okay. Well, we'll leave it there.